Welcome to Blake Street Banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means. The other two are just along for the ride. Mike, say what's up.
What up? What up?
Connor, welcome. Welcome to Blake Street Banter, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, we are joined by Connor Staine, pitcher in the organization, Rockies organization, starting pitcher, and just excited to have it. And I also realized just now, like, I didn't introduce you to Lewis, Mike. So, Mike, Connor, this is
Connor.
Lewis.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, it was my bad. So yeah, just here talking ball. So right now it's March 11th. You're down in spring training. How's this first spring training going? Oh, kind of second, so to speak.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a little busier. Been out here in AZ a little bit prior to that too. So it's been a lot, but there's been some bumps already. But that's how it is. That off-season rust is slowly starting to come off, and now we're getting into go mode. So it was nice today. We got, myself, I got my first inter squad game in, so that was nice. It was good to kind of really get into a competition atmosphere again.
Mm-hmm. So who did you strike out?
It's one of those things where I think I had 4 strikeouts, and then there could have been a 5th in there somewhere, but we didn't play the what's it called? We didn't use like the TrackMan. We had it in the background just to kind of get balls and strikes, but we were letting the coach behind us call them. So
okay.
I think 4, something like that, but I struck out a former teammate with Fresno in Parker Kelly, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was having this conversation with somebody else. Like spring training for fans, it's kind of long, but like we understand like the competition kind of helps it. Kind of is the whole point of it. But how much stock or how much real truth is there in competition really helping you gear up for the season and getting ready to go, as opposed to just bullpens over and over and over?
I mean, I think for me personally, it's huge. When you're doing a bullpen or just, playing catch just with some guys over and over again and trying to work on stuff, it's not the same atmosphere. And it just feels like it dilutes some of your abilities, just because, your body is trying to protect itself. It doesn't want to go full go all the time. So when we get the opportunity to play ourselves, or, most likely starting next week, we start to play teams like the Diamondbacks and the Angels and all those guys, and we get to see some unfamiliar faces in the batter's box. I think that's when, you start to see everything really sync up. Our mechanics come together well. The team starts to mesh a little bit. We start to get put into, basically our affiliate lineups and things like that. So I think there's a lot to it that's really awesome. I know for the fans, it can get relatively redundant, especially when we play the Diamondbacks like 10 times out of our 15 games. But for us, just like baseball is, every game's different. So I think that's where we really see those separators in what we're gaining and what we're losing.
Yeah, I like that. So along those lines, and again, fans of those spring training, we don't need to be watching about and complaining about spring training games being televised. But so Ryan Feltner's been going out there these last few times going out there and just like no game plan. I'm just going out there. I'm just trying to execute pitches. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm working on, that kind of stuff. I guess what kind of preparation kind of goes into that for you, for a pitcher, young pitcher, trying to figure out, everything, like what season 2, right? So trying to figure out everything that goes along with this. What's kind of your preparation, so to speak, as you go day to day compared to when you're out pitching on the mound or something?
I think it's, number one is stay healthy. The hardest part of spring training is just, like I said, getting that rust off. Guys typically get a little banged up here and there. So number one's, as much as we want to improve and show what we worked on, staying healthy is number one. We have mental skills meetings a couple times a week, more so 3 to 4 times a week. And we talk about making a game plan and having your preparation basically down pat. So at this point, so that when we go into season, everything's flowing. It's not like, especially for some of the new guys, the 2023 class, they don't get overwhelmed by going into a 132 game season. Mm-hmm. So, starting that routine now, when to wake up, what you're eating, your pre-pitch routine for pitchers, all those things start to kind of form now. and myself included, along with all the other guys, we're starting to put those pieces back together. So once we get into affiliate ball, it's not like there's a bump in the road. We just keep moving forward. So that's probably, some of the big key points we're working on right now.
What have you worked on this off season? Like, what have you really honed in on?
Mike and I, we actually were at Driveline together in January and February. I was supposed to go down in October, but I decided I'd go home and work on some strength and go down to Florida. So initially, the first thing I wanted to work on was strength and size building. More on the strength side, like you can be as big as you want, but if you're not strong and functionally, it's a detriment. So a lot of my fall off season was based on strength and getting my body as strong as possible, so that as the season wears on you, I'm not losing as much. And then kind of toward the back half of the off season, the work started to transition to the mound, and went to Driveline for a little over a month and a half, not exactly 2 months, but a little over a month and a half, and we started to work on some off speed stuff, how to make things tunnel a little better off of my fastball. Just the way my fastball works, that's going to be my primary pitch, as it is for most guys. So we wanted to fiddle around with the changeup, fiddle around with the curveball a little bit, maybe get them a little tighter and sharper. And with the slider, for me personally, it's just every offseason I lose it completely for a couple months, at least the first couple weeks of spring training, and then one pitch clicks and it's all there again. So for me, it's been a lot of off speed work and strength building.
Okay, so how hard is it to throw a slider? Because like you're not the first person I've heard say that, and like it blows my mind that you've been throwing a slider for a while, and yet you're still trying to find it now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, everyone's different. Some of these guys come out the gates and their stuff looks mid-season form already. For me personally, and I don't know if I speak for everybody else who has problems with throwing sliders, but I would say that it's so much more similar to a fastball than your curveball and changeup are, where there's not as much pronation going on. There's not a big change in your wrist angle. It's one of those things where just the last second you might be pulling down on it to create some action and depth. So most of the time when you see guys working on sliders and they're struggling, it's typically just too small. You get like this cutter type formation. Mm-hmm. And that's typically what I run into. So I think it's just because throwing a fastball and a slider, there's such small room for error if you want a hard one like most of us do. So, there's, I'm an overthinker as well. So I'm always like, oh, well, that one didn't look as good as the one before, so I must be doing something wrong with this. So I got to move my fingers like a quarter of an inch to the left. So, it's one of those things where I feel like the best success comes from just playing and not thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy. I never even thought about that, like them being so similar. I mean, I never was a pitcher. I was even playing Legion ball and all that kind of stuff. It was never in my skill set, so to speak. So I didn't really ever know that, I guess. So yeah, thank you for that. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to your high school career. So grew up in New Jersey. You're pretty much unhittable. Are you still the wins leader in your high school? I saw that you had the record set at 19-6.
Yeah. I was the wins leader, and then I feel like I might have gotten up there with a couple other ones. I don't remember if I had anything else, but I know wins for sure. But more importantly than that, as much as we all joke about it, but as much as you want to close the yearbook, being the first team to win a sectional championship, state championship in our high school's history, that's a pretty awesome moment to capture and take in.
Yeah, like how much fun was that playing high school baseball, just like surrounded by dogs?
Oh, dude, it was great. I mean, especially senior year, our thing was just for the dogs. That was just what it was. So, with who we had, myself, a good friend, one of my good friends, Aiden Healy, who played at Furman and then VCU and then Rollins. One of our other players, Nick, was at Angelo State, which is one of the top D2s in the country. And then we just had so many guys who weren't even committed anywhere, who were just so good and could play at D1 schools. And, we were just coasting under the radar, playing all these teams, kicking everyone's butt. And then, we come up to this formidable force in Jack Leiter, and then things change a little bit, and we don't win a county championship, but everything else, we covered. So if your only big loss is to, top 5 pick, I don't remember if it was first or second overall, but, a top 2 pick in the draft, you're doing something right, especially as a high school team. So.
Yeah, I mean Jack Leiter's shut a few teams down in his day. So
yeah, his heyday, which he's still going through now.
Yeah, no joke. That's insane. Was he the kid that everybody kind of talked about? Because when we played, it was always, oh, this team has this guy who's kind of committed to this, and was he kind of the talk of the town, so to speak?
Yeah, for our county, I'd definitely say so. I mean, to be fair, Anthony Volpe was on the same team as him, so they had two first round picks on a high school team. Obviously, Leiter could have gone first round out of high school as well. Him and I faced off in the county championship, and there was 30 scouts there, and it was just mayhem. Scouts and media crew watching him, and MLB Network stuff watching him. He was just he was 100% the talk of the town, and so was Volpe. To be quite honest, Volpe had like a 60-game hitting streak in high school. I don't think he ever had a game without a hit. It was just some ridiculous numbers like that. I could be wrong. I won't be quoted on it, but it was him. For myself, I had obviously some good traction running on my name. There's guys like Tate Ballestero, Chase Petty, who I think is with the Reds now. Casey Hunt, who was on the Mississippi State team, who won a College World Series. The list kind of just went on in our area, and I feel like a lot of people talk down on Northeast baseball, but I can think of a solid 15 to 20 names in the last 5 to 10 years who are top 5 rounders, who are doing more than good in minor and major league baseball.
Yeah, that's insane. You're just surrounded by greatness.
It was ridiculous.
How much did that play up then? As you're growing up, because I mean, you're a dog. Your 1.7 ERA is pretty nice in that high school stuff. So you're competing with all these guys. Like you said, you're getting some traction. Some people are looking at you. I mean, you end up going to Maryland shortly after out of high school. So how much of that competition did that really just kind of grow? Kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier.
I mean, it was huge, especially when I remember Jack's name being thrown around when we were juniors. That's when it really picked up and he escalated to this national level. But prior to that, it was the competition within my town was the competition I was fighting for. And then I went and played summer ball my sophomore year, and went to area code underclass games and stuff like that. And I start to see what the national competition looks like, and I'm like, dang, I squeaked into area code because I was fortunate. An individual who owned my summer ball team, he was a part of the Cardinals organization in some specific way, big enough where he got a World Series ring from when they won their most recent one, and he got me in. So I see all these kids, and I'm like, geez, man, these guys are no joke. I am not at this level. And then we come home and I see, Leiter and Volpe again, and I'm watching them get all this hype, and I'm like, geez, we're going to play them at some point, and I need to be ready for that. And Casey Hunt was highly touted. So all these guys just, blowing doors off from a social media perspective. I'm like, I really got to pick it up. So when junior and senior started to roll around, in the back of my head, of course, I'm trying to be better than I was the day before, but I'm also saying, hey, how can I show people that I deserve the center stage like these guys do? And that's kind of where, some of my driving force came from, especially when I knew I was going to face them head to head.
Do you think you are where you are right now if it's not for the New Jersey baseball scene?
No. I think that I am a huge fan of Florida. Ever since I've been a kid, I love Florida, and the competition there, no doubt. You can't take away from, these, California, Florida, Texas, Georgia, all those places are loaded. But I firmly believe there is a certain aspect of grit that comes from Northeastern and, Northeastern states, stuff like that. Mike and I talk about it, him being a Chicago kid. Like, I'm gonna be real. Those Florida cats can't handle the cold for first year of their career. They pick up on it later, but they're never used to it out the gate. So I think, some of the tumultuous weather you got to handle, being not, looked at all over the country by scouts and stuff like that. I think that makes you work harder. All we really got until you hit the national scene is like Rutgers, St. John's, Villanova, a lot of Northeastern schools. You don't get a lot of reach down south because they have so many guys to pull from. So, I was fortunate enough that I was getting Big Ten looks, and I think like Virginia Tech and Maryland were like my most southern schools at the time. So I was like, hey, like this is gonna be where I go. I was picturing like sunshine and rainbows going to those places.
Get me out of here.
Yeah, then I get to Maryland in the fall and it's 30 degrees out every day, and I'm like, man, this is not what I envisioned.
This isn't what college football supposed to be like.
Seriously.
You played at UCF, and then before then you played in New Jersey. Do you like the warm or cold weather more?
No doubt, warm weather. Grew up in the cold, but you can't beat playing baseball in warm weather, man. Like I'm trying to have a sweat going after I finish my game, not have icicles coming out of my nose because it's 30 degrees out, 20 degrees out, and I'm trying to pitch to some kid who's using a wooden bat or metal bat. It's just brutal in the north, but it hardens you a little bit. You get used to certain things.
Yeah, that was so. Growing up in western Nebraska, we had crazy wind. Like it was just far enough away from Denver where we got all the wind coming off the mountains. It was just brutal wind chills all the time. So there were a few games that was snowy and just windy and just ridiculous weather that you're just like, all right, we got to get it in because I don't know when we're going to, because it's going to rain for the next month or so. We got to figure it out. And there is some kind of grit to it. Like you are just playing, you're just being a kid and playing and doing your thing. I remember talking to Jared Candy, speaking of Southern kids going up north. When he got to Spokane for the first time, he's like, I went online. I got all the big coats. I got all the cold weather gear and got it sent up real quick because I'm not about to do all that. It was just too cold for Florida Candy.
Yeah, man.
There. It will humble you real quick, especially when you get one on the end of the bat. Did you play offense or defense at all in high school? I'm sorry, defense.
Yeah, high school played third base and first base, so corner and field. I was especially in my area, I was one of the harder throwing kids. So getting a chance to every couple of times a game, let something eat from third base.
Yeah,
I always took advantage of stuff like that, and I've always been a super flexible guy. So playing first base and picking and splitting and all that fun stuff that you got to do over there, I got used to that pretty quick too. So I would have loved to have caught though. That's always been a position that I've admired. So that would have been something I wish I could have done.
Do you wish the DH thing haven't like, if it like didn't stick around, you'd still be able to bat? Do you wish that was a thing?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how this will bode with. I don't know how this part will bode well with Forbes or some of the higher ups, but in the off season, I train with friends of mine and other organizations, shortstops, outfielders and stuff like that, and every now and then, if I get a chance to go take some hacks on the field or whatever, I'll absolutely go do it. I love hitting. I've always been one of those guys that I just love it. I was fortunate enough that I could hit home runs relatively consistently, especially when it came to batting practice and stuff like that. You just get the launch angle right and it flies. So any chance I get, I would love an opportunity to hit in major league games. Only thing I think about is like Bartolo Colon hitting the home run in San Diego. I forget the kid's name who hit one off of Scherzer. He hit the grand slam in like the first inning.
Padres,
yeah, and he was just freaking out. I'm like, could you imagine how cool it is to like be a pitcher, and no matter however your career ends, you have a hit or a home run or a walk. Like you ran the bases in a Major League Baseball game, and you haven't trained hitting in however many years. Like that just sounds too cool to me.
Yeah, that would be sick. I mean, yeah, you got to just get out there. That's what Zach Agnos, he was saying. Like he would just go out to he grab his infield glove, he just go pick out balls and like, hey, coach, can I play defense today? You gonna put me in tonight? So
hey man, he's a two-way. He's a true two-way. So I can see that for sure.
So you just got to do that. Like just stand behind the cage, like when you're watching, and just like have the bat ready to go. Like, coach, I'm ready.
I gotta get myself some batting gloves.
Yeah, Let's make that a thing. Connor Staine steps up to the plate in 2024. So, what was some of the biggest differences between Maryland? I guess maybe let's start with, how did you end up at Central Florida from Maryland? Because you played in Maryland for the 2020 and the 2021 season, and then transferred down to Central Florida, and where you got drafted out of in 5th round. But like, what were some of the reasons you made it to Florida? Because were you just sick of the cold? And what were some of the biggest differences between Florida and Maryland, but also Big Ten versus what is that? AAC? What are they?
Yeah, American.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I had some struggles my freshman year in a multitude of places, personal, academic, athletic. It was just a rough year, to put simply. And you know, COVID hit, and I was like, hey, like I think I would really like to go play somewhere else. You know, the head coach, Coach Vaughn, awesome. He's at Bama now. He's one of the greatest coaches I've ever had. Same with Coach Papio and Coach Swope. You know, it's just like anything. Me and my pitching coach didn't get along, and that's no big deal. You know, things happen. I wish him nothing but the best. He's the pitching coach at Wake Forest now. But my freshman year, I wanted to leave, and Coach Vaughn was, you know, gracious enough to give me an opportunity to stay with a little bit extra money to go towards my scholarship. And sure enough, team has a good year. We go to a regional championship, and I come off an injury to try to pitch in a regional championship against ECU, which is quite an environment, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up losing that game by 1 or 2 runs. I can't recall. But it was a good game. And, you know, once that happened, and the seniors that I had grown to appreciate my second year around had left, I kind of came to the conclusion that it was going to be better for me to prove to people that I know what I'm capable of and how good I believe I am if I go elsewhere. I didn't feel that they were going to plan to start me the following season. So we go to the Cape, and I meet Persecki and Hunter Patterson, who's with the Royals, and Alex Freeland, who's with the Dodgers, both of which who became my roommates at UCF. I met them down there, and I had entered the portal like the week before I had come in. So, you know, I'm already getting calls left and right from schools I used to talk to in high school. And, you know, summer ball progresses, and I'm not getting a ton of college looks in Florida that I'm hoping for. You know, I ended up getting Florida State to reach out. UNC, it gave me an offer. Those are like my top 2 going into the latter half of the summer. And I texted Hunter Patterson and Alex Freeland. I'm like, can you get me set up with a call with Lovelady or Coach Adi, who was the pitching coach at the time? He's now with the Red Sox. They're like, yeah, sure. I kid you not. Adi called me one time for 5 minutes, just asked about life and like nothing baseball related. And then we had horrible reception at our field. And I get a phone call from Coach Lovelady, who was the head coach. And he literally calls me. He's like, hey, bud, you know, talk to Hunter and Alex. They say you're real good. How would you feel about coming down? We can't guarantee a starter spot, but like we have X amount of dollars in scholarship. And it was maybe a 3-minute conversation. I said, I'm in. We came to that agreement, got it all taken care of. And basically, you know, my story for that is I didn't even look at the school, the campus, the baseball program, how good they were, whether they played in a shed or they played in a coliseum. I just wanted to be in Florida, and I wanted to be somewhere that I knew I could earn a starting spot. So that was the biggest factor was a starting spot. And I know Florida State and UNC had more lockdown roles, but from what my HPAT and Alex Freeland had told me, there was one spot left on the weekend. So I was like, hey, I'm going to throw all my eggs in one basket, and we're going to see what happens. And, you know, especially prior to my injury, things were incredible. Every single second of UCF it almost feels like a fever dream. Like it never really happened. That's just how good it was.
Yeah. That's wild. That's quite a trip to get down there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Crazy like change of events.
Yeah, that's not traditional at all. Like you're just and like freshman year kicked my butt too. Like freshman year of college, like I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So I can kind of relate to some of the things that you were maybe going through at that time, and then let alone be an athlete and trying to compete and doing all that stuff is also
of course
a whole different thing. So then after you're kind of feeling that, you're just like, all right, I got to go do my thing and like you said, eggs in a basket and like really fighting for that spot and really proving yourself to whoever. But like, I guess, where does that mentality come from? Like, because some people, like, freshman year sucked, it kicked my ass, I'm done, like I'm good, I'll go somewhere else, or we'll just call it, we'll call it a wash. What was kind of that push for you to get to that like, all right, I am a competitor, this is what I want to do, let's go make this happen?
It's you know, I think it comes down to it's the same mentality I've had since I really started playing competitively. Um, I'm a firm believer that I know what I'm capable of, and I know I'm capable of, you know, exceeding above and beyond the expectations that are set upon me, and what is already out in the world. And I remember my freshman year, you know, I'm like, I can. In my freshman year, I told myself, I'm like, I can be a first rounder. Like I have the same stuff as Sean Burke, who became a third rounder for us, or I have the same stuff as this guy, that guy. And sophomore year, even with how tumultuous it was, I still, like, it sounded, I'm sure it sounded awful to my teammates when I was just like, man, like this circumstance and that circumstance, I'm like, I know I'm better than this. I know it. And um, I think there was that lack of faith within my team, that I was like, you know what, I need a clean slate, because I do know that I'm capable of this, of being a first rounder, of a big leaguer, this and that. You know, the list goes on as we continue moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of it, you know, just this everlasting belief that I can, you know, the corny cliche saying of I can achieve whatever I dream of. But it's true, you know, that's the mindset I have toward it. And I think just the way my dad was leading into college, you know, and I love him to death, and he'll admit this too. You know, when I was younger, he was like, I told him I wanted to play at UCLA when I was a kid. That was my dream school as a youngin'. And he was like, hey man, like, why don't we just focus on like getting to college, and then we'll go from there. And then I was like, no, I want to play ball in college. And then it was like a trickle down effect. You know, it was Rhode Island first, and then it was like St. John's, and then we hit Rutgers, and it kept progressing. And then I'm like, hey, I want to play pro ball. And it was, hey, you know what? Let's just finish a college career. And now finally, after I got drafted, and you know, things were where they were before injury and how they were after injury, it's no more of the, hey, let's kind of drop down that bar. Now it's like, hey, no, like the fact that I was able to basically transform him from trying to be a realist into a believer is like one of those things that I'll forever hold close to my heart, because that's something that, you know, took a lot of time. He doesn't want to see me get hurt. And now knowing that he's full-heartedly behind my back, like, why wouldn't I go for it now? I finally just got him to believe in everything I want to achieve.
Right.
Now this is go time.
Yeah. I love that. Like, that's like, as a dad myself, like my oldest is 6, and it's like, okay, so what is that fine line? Like, as a parent, like as a father, like, all right, go do you, go do you. But I also have to be here ready to catch you and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of get where your dad's coming from in that too. Like, all right, we gotta keep those expectations high, but at the same time, like, let's kind of keep it safe, or kind of keep it grounded, so to speak. And that's tough, but like, he obviously has you guys have some kind of connection where you're like, all right, I'm gonna go do this, are you gonna support me when I get there? And it seems like that kind of happened, and that's got to feel good too. Like, all right, I'm here, I did all this, now you're on board, all this, so like, let's ride into the sunset together. Like, let's just go 100% to this.
Yeah, that's definitely what it was. And like I said, he always believed in me, my abilities. It was just like you said, like, you always want to be there to catch me if I fall, and you don't want me to fall too far. And now things get a little bit crazy. That was his biggest fear. And I would always just try to tell him, like, dude, it's like, it's gonna happen. Like, don't even think it's not, like, it's gonna happen. And that's why it was. I have a picture on my Instagram of my dad hugging me, and I'm crying, and you can't see his face in it, but he's crying. And you know, in that moment, I got drafted. There was a mixed emotions of happy and sad and frustration and whatnot. But I told him, like, you know, he was super proud, and I told him, like, this is just one step. Like, we're gonna keep going. And I thanked him for always being there. And it's just like you said. I'm sure as a father yourself, it's it's one of those things where you always want to see them succeed, but you know the hard truth that there's going to be failure involved. And I think he finally overcame that barrier once the draft had concluded, and he knew that I had gotten one step closer to what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's that's awesome. And so, and then getting the draft call, getting all that, like that had to have been pretty sick. So like, did you have all your people around, and like how did kind of the draft process kind of work for you?
Yeah, it was busy from, I would say, the fall of 21 to summer of 22. The fall was busy, but it was slow forming because I hadn't built that foundation yet. And I think we had a scout day in like November, and I came out the gates throwing like 97, and I had like blown doors off. People didn't even know who I was. And then, I checked my phone the next day, and I had reached the top 300 list. And I was angry. I was mad. I'm like, dude, again, the whole I know what I'm capable of thing. So, we have these fall meetings and stuff like that. And I started seeing my name continue to go up the boards. And I remember checking my phone one day, and Perfect Game and Baseball America had me at like 36, 38, and 40. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I think the big flip was Ole Miss. We played Ole Miss, and that was probably my best college start ever. And the next morning I see something at or maybe the end of the week, I see something at me at like 24 on like a draft board. And I'm like, dude, like, even though I had been visualizing this and manifesting it, like I couldn't fathom the fact that I was a no name going into high school. I was the only unranked kid in my Maryland recruit class. And now I'm a junior year, I'm in a top 30 situation potentially. So that was pretty hectic. You start to get in these crazy head games with yourself. How important is this next at bat or this next pitch? And, I was fortunate enough to go, I think 33 innings of no earned runs before I got hurt. And, that was pretty cool. That definitely set the tone a little bit. I wish I could have, followed through with it and finished things off, but that wasn't the plan set in place. So, a lot of the calls transitioned from, hey, we like you as a potential first rounder or a potential first or second pick to, so what really happened? There was some speculation that I had received TJ, and I was masking it by saying it was a finger injury. So that had grinded my gears a little bit. And you start to see the projections go up to like 30, 40, 50, 60, so on and so forth. And you're like, all right, what can I do to salvage this? And then the combine rolls around, and I'm like, hey, maybe I can basically talk my way into these guys, believing what I believe, and let them see me firsthand. And it was either that or go play in the Cape. And looking back on it, as much as I loved the meetings, it might have been more beneficial for my stock to play in the Cape now that my finger was closer to being healthy. But, met with everyone, had some good conversations. Cool little moment was talking with the Yankees as a New Jersey native.
Yeah.
But then, go for the draft. I have my friends and family come out to my mom's place in South Carolina. There was potential for day one, even with the injury. It didn't happen, which was, it was a little blow. You always hold on to hope to stuff like that. Whatever happens, happens. But then day two rolls around, and, there's more of a scuffle because the picks are faster. So on and off the phone, my agent, on and off the phone with random, clubs, back and forth, getting offers, rejecting offer, getting offer, rejecting offer. And finally, my agent at the time had called, and he was like, hey, like, I think this is a good offer. This was one of our big teams that we were looking at for day one. And we talked about it very briefly because I was also getting blown up from the Rockies. As I was on the phone with my agent, I'm like, just take it. Like, I can't handle this anymore. Like, things have gone a little bit awry. Let's close the chapter of my life right here and move on to the next one. And I didn't even get to enjoy the moment. I was on the phone with the Rockies while my name got called, while they did the little post pick overview and stuff like that. And then on top of all of that, I can't even hear him because I'm crying like a child. And all my friends and family are, trying to give me a hug. And I'm like, dude, there's like sensory overload.
Yeah.
I just couldn't wait to for that moment, quite honestly, for me personally, I couldn't wait for that moment to be done. It was just too much at the time. Like I said, all the flur of emotions. And then like 30 minutes later, they called me back in to like, hey, we need you, out in Colorado in 7 days. I'm like, all right, quick turnaround. And then the next thing you know it's instructs and you're having meetings and getting used to and acclimated to minor league life. So to be honest, any kid who's fortunate enough to go through it, and I find myself incredibly fortunate to be in a position where I got to see, potentials and day ones and stuff like that, which was super, super cool. And even to where I went, like super eternally grateful because not many people get to do it. It's a super cool environment to be in. So as much as it was hectic and all of us are like, thank God it's over, there's some aspect that you wouldn't mind going back to do. Like it's nice being wanted at times, as silly as that sounds. It's pretty cool though.
Throughout the process, did you look at mock drafts and kind of like look at the team you were draft like mock to and be like, oh, I like that fit or I don't like that fit?
Oh my God, yeah, dude. I was doing that all the time because there was, you have the big accounts like MILB Network or MILB Central. And then there's these other ones that are like MILB.Central. And like, they're just over and over repetitive. And it's partially MLB's rankings, partially theirs. And you got Baseball America and all these guys. But yeah, I remember, it was, Rockies in the first and second round. Well, not first, excuse me, second round. At one point they had me with the Padres, which I thought would have been pretty cool. Cleveland Guardians, the Twins. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, like, do I see myself fitting in this place or that place? How would it feel to rep that team, that organization? And I mean, to be honest, I'm a pitcher. When you get picked up by the Rockies, you're like, all right, the home run per nine is going to be higher than most pitchers, so got to get used to that. But now that you fast forward basically 2 years at this point, I couldn't now in this stage in the game picture myself being as content anywhere else because of how great the organization is and how awesome people like Forbes and my coach last year, Steve Solis, and the strength coach like Trevor and Jason. You can just run down the list of guys who are so good to us and take care of us 24/7 that, of course we'd all like to sleep in, but that's not the reality. We got a job to do. So I think that I was super fortunate to be put with this organization. And, as much as they picked me, I think that I'm a believer that things happen for a reason. And I think there was a reason that I got, picked up by the Rockies. And I hope that I continue to feel that way and they continue to feel that way.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Like, you're one of my favorite like arms to watch. Like last year, every time I could watching Fresno, I was always trying to catch your game. So I'm pretty stoked about it. But like, so you're very rare in the fact that you are looking at stuff like that, like the rankings and stuff. How do you kind of, I don't know, separate the two, or how do you keep that in check, or like, how do you stay grounded, I guess, while you're doing that? Because a lot of people they don't, and like that's just what they choose to do, right? But like, how do you do that?
Yeah, for myself personally, it's a sword. It's double-edged, man. You got to be careful because as cool as something can be, it can be just as detrimental if you let it. It's a mental game. That's really what it comes down to. And what I've learned is, if I saw it, when I got drafted, I was in the top 30 for the Rockies on MLB. And that was cool. Super awesome moment. Some places had me outletted in the top 30 as well. And I thought that was great. Like, I was super pumped up about it. It's nice to get a little write up about yourself. And now I'm not in the top 30, but when I was, the goal and the mindset was, how can I get further up the chain? How can I be a top 10 or a top 5? And how can I continue to do that at the fastest rate possible? Like we all want to do. And then vice versa. Now, and it's no ill will to my teammates, Prasecki and Ritter on our top 30. And I love those guys to death. They're some of my best friends. But now I look at it as I'm not in the top 30. Now it's time to really step on the gas and show what I'm capable of. And not that the rankings themselves mean a thing in regards to me getting called up or not. It means nothing. But it's always nice to have those rankings within your name because it is a form of validity behind what you're capable of. And again, simultaneously, I know dozens of guys who are not ranked in their team's organizations who had phenomenal seasons. and I could be wrong. I'm sure you guys will be able to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if Blake is in our top 30, and I believe Blake is one of our most powerful arms when it comes to how he performed in Fresno, and even with what he was capable of doing when he was up in Spokane. And that just goes to show, like, rankings are wonderful and all, but if you don't let it consume you, like, you're still going to be the same guy with a sub-2 or a sub-3 ERA. Like,
Right.
Mike wasn't ranked in there, and he kicked butt all year long. Like, it was watching him was like watching Picasso paint. It was ridiculous. So.
Yeah, Blake is not in the 30, but we do say all the time when you have like these national outlets, they can't get to every single player on every single team. It kind of just ends up being like they're just kind of throwing darts out there.
Yeah.
So it's never really like fair.
No doubt. And you got to take everything into perspective and knock the table over. And you just got to it's all just, we're still playing the game. That's the most important part. I think for the people like myself who do look at them, it doesn't affect us too much. Like, that's not my fuel for being better. It's if I see it, I'm like, hey, okay, like let's work harder. Let's try to get in there. But like, it's in and out. Like, it's in one ear, out the other. It's cool, and then you leave it. The guys who get stuck in it, I think, are the guys who are like, gives them nightmares that they see themselves drop out of those numbers. And that's not to say they're not mentally strong. It just means that that's an area in their life that they do not need stressing them. The game's hard enough as is. If you can eliminate stressors, yeah, man, then I'm all for it. But for me personally, it's just I'm a numbers guy. So it's nice to see things like that every now and then.
Yeah. And it's also like, we don't praise ourselves enough for all the hard work we do. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Everybody does it. Like, my wife is a badass professional dentist. Like, she's awesome, but she comes home and beats herself up more than she praises herself. It's like, no, you got to remember, like, you are fantastic at this. Like, you can't let that one thing stop you from doing it. So, like, it's okay to give it to yourself sometimes too. Like, and we just forget that as humans. Like, we get caught up into being great, being good, and like looking at what those little things are to get there. But at the same time, like, you do need to take a step back. Like, all right, I did really good at that. I did that, and that was awesome. So what's next? What can I build on that? But like, stopping to smell the roses, so to speak. Like, we have to be able to do that, and being able, like, for you, like, being able to say, yeah, it's there, it's gone. All right, let's go work. And like, and it sets your goal, it sets your mindset, and you now have a game plan. Like,
100%.
And that's completely okay. Everybody's different in however you handle it. So, like, professional season, right? Professional season, Fresno, you're watching Proshecki go. You had some bumps and bruises the first few months. And then you got it figured out towards the end. I guess, how did that whole season play out? Like,
dude, I mean, it was one fun ride, that's for sure. We will finish with the best record in the league. We should have been in.
Yeah, don't get us started on that. We talked to Steven Rice after that, and we're just like, dude, what is this? He's like, I don't know. This is bullshit.
It's terrible. Yeah, it is. Splitting the season up into two parts is lunacy, but it is what it is. Like you said, dude, it was tough in the beginning. I had this feeling that now that my finger was healthy, I can just steamroll guys with fastballs. Like, I'll be fine. I'll just throw fastballs, and I'll throw them way too much. Like, you have to mix and match and make things, harder for hitters. And I was like, hey, 0-0, here's a fastball. 0-1, fastball. 1-1, like, I was just throwing fastballs like it was there was nothing else in the tank. And you get hit up. You're a little wild out the gates, for myself in particular. And then after a couple of weeks of like questioning if I can really do this, because it was just heavy. It's hard, man. You're just getting teed up by these kids that you're like, man, like, I thought I could be in high A right now. Like, I thought I could do this at double A right now. Like, we're all thinking these things in our head. And you go in and they ring the bell and you get your teeth knocked out first punch. You're like, wow, like, this is a little bit different. So I think I don't really know exactly what it was, but just there was one or two good games in a row, and I kind of was like, you know what? What if I crazy thought here? What if I throw more off speed pitches and I make that fastball look like it's 100 instead of 95? And then I'm like, like, I'm getting more punch outs. Like, I'm throwing more strikes. I don't have to rely on one pitch to get all my strikes on. this is pretty cool. And then I think I had a stretch of like 12 in a row, and it was great. 12 in a row, 4 or 5 or 6 innings, 2 or 3 runs or less, something like that. It was great. Like I felt like my normal self again, and I'm slowly watching from the trauma and ERA disaster I had built off of my first couple of starts. I'm like, it's going down, and I let some external sources affect me in a negative manner. As we got to that back half of the year, and I had 2 bad starts in a row, and I'm like, hey, I gotta clean up the negativity in my life, and it was a bummer because I was about to be in the 3s for an ERA, and then I had to start against Modesto, and it shot it back up heavy. And I was like, all right, you know what? Like, hey, season's not going to end in the 3s no more, but let's see what damage control we can make. And, I had a great game in Visalia, and then got really sick. Had to go to the hospital that week. And then the following week, I'm like, hey, I got to pitch one more time. Like, I want to face Modesto. And it was the last game of the year, and I had, 3 relief innings and I think 6 punch outs. I don't know, maybe a little less. But it was a great, way to end the season off with a 3 inning relief appearance, something I'm not typically used to. Coming back off of illness, not feeling hot, velo, right in that 1 to 4 range for the most part, and set up in the mid to upper 90s like I was in Visalia. Super cool though, as much as it was tough and you have these epic highs and epic lows in the season, man, is it cool. And Fresno, the field itself, the facility itself is awesome. Where we lived in Clovis, just outside of Fresno, downtown Fresno, was beautiful. And I loved it, man. You get hooked on it pretty quick. I'm hooked on it. I'm, as much as I love spring training, like I'm trying to go see what the heck Spokane's got to offer, and then what Hartford's got to offer. So it's super awesome. Like there's no other way to put it. There's no other adjectives and ways to express what this is. It's just, you're playing a kid's game as a job, and you get to travel the country doing it. Like it's nuts. It's nuts.
When so in college you pitch what, like probably 40 to 50 innings a season, and then you go to Fresno, and I think you pitched like 100 almost. I think. Did you find yourself? Did you like adapt to that really quickly, or was it hard for you? I
mean, I'm not going to sit here and say like I felt phenomenal on game like 22, but you get used to it. You get, just like anything, this routine down. You're like, hey, like my Monday pen, I'm going to be sore as all get out. So we're just going to lob these in, like really get that flush going, get everything moving around. And then you go into your your outing, and you're like, hey, like I feel good. Like I know what I need to do to get loose now. 130 games in, got to get my hips going, got to get my groin going, got to get my shoulder going way earlier than just throwing the baseball. So, you kind of pick up on those little key details that keep you going. I won't lie, though. I woke up a couple mornings and stretched and was locked like this, and I had to massage that John back out to straight. But that's part of the beauty in it, man. You got to take care of it and figure out what works. And it's definitely a change, though. Like college to pro ball, for me specifically, I was never one of those guys who got to throw 100 innings. So that was a big concern for me and the staff. I'm sure, hey, can his arm handle double, triple the stress that it was going through the prior years? Because I was a walking injury stick my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. I got 16 innings freshman year, 30-something sophomore, and 45 junior year. So I didn't even equate to 100, I don't think, in my 3 years of service in college baseball. But now that I've done it, I think I'll be more equipped to go into this season and maybe not have as many scares and concerns, in that mid-mark in the year where most guys start to feel their bodies kind of hitting that fork in the road where they got to make a decision if they're going to push harder or get off the gas a little bit.
We hear that a lot from the guys, like first-year professional guys. Like, yeah, it was just finding the routine and figuring out what works for my body, because it's a whole different kind of grind. Like you said, 132 games over 6-7 months. Like, it's a thing, and you have to figure out what works. Like, you don't know. Like, nobody knows what they're doing as soon as they start their career. Whether it's
different for sure,
everything's different, and you got to figure out what works. But like, and you were kind of saying your numbers there, but like your last 8 starts, you gave up 2 walks or less. 5 of your last 8 starts gave up 2 walks or less. So like in some of those big run games, the walks kind of kicked your ass a little bit. But like, what how did you kind of figure that stuff out? Was that like really trusting your breaking stuff, like you were talking about? Like, how did you kind of become more of a pitcher, so to speak, towards the end of the season there?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to put it. You know, I quite honestly was probably just a thrower in the first couple months and stuff like that. Yeah, you know, it was trusting off speed. I always had this feeling that because my fastball was what it was and is what it is, I was like, man, like my off speed isn't going to compete with this stuff. Like they're going to sniff this out in a heartbeat. And you know, it's so silly because you know, we're 21, 22, or let's just say 18 to 20 something year olds playing this game as pitchers, and then like you just forget these super minuscule but important things where it's like, hey, like throw your slider with conviction and just see what happens. And you know, I get a first rounder from the Dodgers to swing out of his shoes, or excuse me, from the Padres to swing out of his shoes, and it's like that was pretty cool. Let's just keep going with that. And I think that just it offers free strikes. You got a kid geared up for fastball, and you just spin a cement mixer slider in there, and he just stares at it. It's like, thanks for giving me advantage count. Like, and on top of that, it was, you know, you can go down the list, mindset, all these things, but I think it was just like the getting that confidence back from a couple good starts in a row. That gave me that comfortability that, like, you know, when I go into these, I don't got to be perfect. I know my fastball sometimes runs, sinks. Like I'm always going to be running this way. But you know, let's just set up down the middle to start the batters off and let that thing do what it's going to do. And I stopped trying to be a perfectionist, and I was playing like this instead of just playing relaxed and loose. And sure enough, when you start actually loving the game, instead of just thinking of it as like, hey, I have to be successful, you actually do better when you just enjoy playing. So, you know, that's just what it came down to.
Yeah, just going out and doing your thing and relax and playing your game. Like you said, like the mental piece of it is pretty big. That's awesome. Like trusting your stuff, like your stuff is nasty. Like it's I love watching you pitch. I love your 3-part motion like of the wind up. How did you kind of find that? Because you're a big guy, you're athletic enough, like it looks even more intimidating too. Like how did you kind of figure out your wind up?
So my sophomore year, I something always felt wrong. I'm like, man, like this is weird. Like something with the wind up, it feels like there needs to be more movement. I feel like I'm too stagnant up top when my lower half is all moving. And I went home for, I think it was right before summer ball or something like that. And I was like, I was throwing a pen and I was throwing soft, like a week before going out to, you know, the Cape, which is, you know, the most notorious summer ball league in the world. And I was like, man, this is not good. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's just like, I got this urge to do it because my buddy had done it and he doesn't play ball anymore. And I was like, you know, like, let's see what happens. And the whole pen, I was like 89, 91. And I let this over the head motion go. And it's like, and I had never done this before. It was like 95. Easy, like the easiest 95 I'd ever thrown in a pen. And I'm like, there's no way that just came from doing over the top. And we do another one and it's 94 or a 93.8. And we're like seeing how it's syncing everything together so much more fluidly than how I was before. And I was like, well, you know, I'm not comfortable with it yet, but I mean, if we're going to throw a couple miles per hour harder on average with it, we have to stick with this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I started to pick the brains of some of the guys when I'm playing in the Cape, and it just ended up being kind of like you said, you know, I firmly believe kind of how you said it was. I think there's some, whether it's so much movement going on that like you lose track of where my arm is, or like it doesn't look as simple to follow out the hand. I feel like it plays up and making the pitches harder to hit. You know, clearly not. Some of those guys are off, but when things are flowing and things are mixing well together, I think it helps with that equation a little bit.
Yeah, there's something about the herky jerky, like boom, boom, boom thing, and the extension you get out there, like you stride off that mound, and like that's almost intimidating in itself. So I'm sure all that plays a part into that. That's cool. Like again, like you were not the first one who kind of just figured something out in the bullpen. I think it was Case Williams who was telling us that he figured out how to throw a slider because he had a boo-boo on his finger, so he had to move it a little bit. He was messing around with the bullpen. He was like, "Oh wow, that was awesome. Let's try this again." And 100%. and that's how he's found his slider grip. And it's just things like that. It's just insane, like how these little things you just don't know. And you're just gonna try it, see what happens, and here we are. I love that about baseball. I absolutely love that.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah. All right. So we won't take up too much of your time. Let's end it here. We always like to end it with some fun, superlative questions. So I guess who was your favorite player growing up? You kind of alluded to it earlier, being a Yankees fan with the Northeast, but who was kind of your favorite athlete? It can be baseball player, athlete growing up.
As a kid, I was never lefty. I truly feel I was supposed to be as a kid because I picked up everything left-handed. My dad switched me, but nevertheless, I was a huge David Price fan as a young baseball fan. Big fan of David Price. As I got older, I really like Glasnow. Just the way he just big dude, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But from my Yankees, my Yankees fans and stuff like that, they might not approve, but I loved A-Rod. I emulated my swing after him. I emulated playing third base after him. He was the guy that jerseys and whatnot. Those guys were like total idols of mine when I was a kid. And then obviously as I grew up, you start to just want to be like those guys because you're that much closer. So that's why I grew more towards Glasnow and probably Scherzer. I'd say those are my top two.
Yeah, start gearing towards the pitchers. Like A-Rod was my favorite player at one point too. I loved him. Awesome. Like when he was younger, it was like, all right, cool, this is fun. And then for whatever reasons, we won't get.
And then the steroids.
yeah. then all that other stuff. I guess what is your kind of favorite getaway spot? So if you just need to get away from the game, get a moment to yourself. Where's like your maybe favorite vacation spot, so to speak, or something like that.
Honestly, there's if I'm trying to get away from the game, like, and we're somewhere, I love mountains and stuff like that. Even just like getting to see the sunset somewhere just kind of takes some things away. So quite honestly, Arizona is beautiful for that. It is one of the top tier places for that. But if I'm really talking like vacation, get away from the game, get a breather, be a normal human again, not just surrounded by baseball. Probably Florida or somewhere tropical like that. I would love to go visit like Fiji or one of those crazy places. Something about the beach and the water and just all that has always been one of my favorite things to do. So hopefully one day I can take trips like that in the off season.
Yeah, it's coming soon. And then I have two more questions. I just remembered this one. How quickly did you get that Rockies tattoo after you were drafted?
There it is. Right there with the backwards. Well, it's not backwards on mine. I guess we got people swinging instead of looking. But I got that. I'm trying to think. So I had to do it the week I came home because my mom was in South Carolina. So we drove up a couple of days later, called my tattoo artist who had done, like you can only see the part of it, but most of my entire sleeve. And I was like, hey, I just got drafted, need to get a tattoo real quick. Like, what's your availability? Like in the next 30 minutes, like we're passing through on this 11-hour road trip. And he was like, yeah, just come on in. And came in, got the tattoo done. Myself and my 3 best friends from my hometown all got a backwards K or a K with like a home plate, something emulating Rockies and baseball stuff. So we all did that together. And Clint Hurdle gave me a little bit of a spiel about it, like day 2 of spring training, because he said he needs to be bigger. And I told him once I get to the big leagues and I get a contract, then I'll get a full sleeve just for him.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I'll do it. I swear. If I get a contract, believe me, I will have a purple, black, and white sleeve.
Absolutely, that would be sick.
They should call you up like tomorrow just to fool with you.
Imagine.
That would be awesome.
We're gonna give you a contract for the same. We're gonna give you a contract for $20,000, and that's gonna go toward getting the tattoo done.
You're just now here. We're forever on you. That would be awesome. That'd be so funny. Then my favorite question, our last question. You're gonna be completely selfish when you answer this. What is your favorite baseball moment of all time?
Dude, it's a tough one. It's really tough. I think just for, this might maybe this will be the last time I really close the yearbook on it. as much as the Ole Miss game was awesome, and you know, even though it wasn't successful, getting to pitch against ECU in a regional championship, winning my state championship in high school, you know, 1-0. I pitched 8 2/3, like 11 or 13 strikeouts. And I have my buddy come in, and it's a tie game, and he did not throw hard. He was a slow throwing lefty. And I think it was like 1-1, and he throws a pitch, and this kid almost hits it out. I'm like, oh man, we got to score this inning. And my friend hits a walk-off dribbler down the third base line, like just doesn't get more than 20 feet from home plate. And the kid runs home and just mobbing, you know, him right over like the pitcher's mound and hugging my coach and getting the trophy. It was it was our 25th win, and I wore number 25. And now at our school, you know, we got kids wearing 25 and stuff like that. So like it was everything about it was almost like too good to be true. Prom was the same day, so now we're going to prom with our state championship trophy, like, you know, the goofy cops do in the movies. It's just, it was too perfect of a scene to have extra innings and all that, and a couple thousand people watching us play. So I would for sure, if I were given the opportunity to time travel, go back and maybe relive that moment one more time.
Yeah, that is a movie. That is a movie scene right there. That's awesome.
One of a kind.
Yeah. And there's nothing like playing ball with your high school buddies at that moment in that time. Like nothing else matters to 18-year-old boys at all, except for that right there.
We just want that trophy, and we want to go party and hang out with everybody, and basically just say, like, look what we just did. We've been talking about this for 2 years. Everybody hated us our junior year. And then our senior year, we have everybody supporting us. So it was a pretty awesome way to end our high school careers, to say the least.
Yeah, that's sick. That's awesome. I love that. That's awesome. Thank you, Connor, for hanging out with us. Glad we got this figured out. And then you're one of our guys. So now we're going to be doing all that we can to get your name out there a little bit more. I'm sure most people already know who you are, but we're going to be watching and just do you, man. Go do cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully I can make you guys proud, you know, continue making friends and family proud, the org. And yeah, man, just thank you guys for having me on. This has been a great time. And you know, hopefully we'll catch up sometime soon.
Yeah, we'll have to run it back sometime.
When you get the sleeve, we'll catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I'll have to do that first.
Yeah, come here and show it here first. We'll be the first one. All right. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and listening. Please check out our link tree for more content.